you like trying to mock me? I kind of understand.
Hey yo, here we go. Microphone check. 1 2 1 2. I said microphone check. 1 2. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Ain't nobody out here winning like me. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Just like me, like me. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Ain't nobody out here winning like me. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Just like me, like me.
All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a spur of the moment, Ace is Wild. I am your host, Ace. My guy next to me, Turtle. We're here as kind of a Bears therapy session. For those of you that may have missed it, the Chicago Bears lost another heartbreaker, kind of the norm for this Matt Eberflus team. They lost to the Washington Commanders 18-15 in a game in which they really had no business being in the lead at all, to be honest. But before we dive into that, Turtle, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. It's good to be back out here. It's been a really, really long time. I wish it was under better circumstances as far as our Bears go, but back nonetheless.
It's usually I do my show on Fridays, and the last 2 weeks before this week, before the bye, the Bears put up some pretty great games, albeit against inferior teams, but they left us with some hope going into the bye week, right? You beat Jacksonville, you beat Carolina, and you beat
them soundly.
Right,
like,
you beat them
convincingly. It wasn't like, we eked out a win.
And then, all week leading up to this game, there was is Jaden Daniels going to play? Is he not going to play? You found out he is going to play, which, I'm not a coach. I don't know how difficult it is to prepare your team for that kind of a situation. But I know football. I know what my eyes tell me. I know what should be a logical game plan going into a game. I know that whatever we watched Sunday for the first 3 quarters was completely unacceptable. The team came out, in my opinion, looking flat, looking underprepared. The offense looked a mess. The offensive line was terrible for most of that game. You had a couple injuries throughout the game, which didn't help the offensive line. Caleb did not play great the first 3 quarters. It's one of those losses, right, where it's almost like if they were going to lose, I would have much rather it had been the end of the
48-6.
Right, which it looked like it was trending. Washington had been in the red zone, 4 times, and the Bears held them to field goals. So, realistically, you punch those in for touchdowns, and this game isn't even close, and
but at the same time, you got to give the defense credit that they,
right.
when it mattered, they shortened up the field and got tough.
Absolutely, and unfortunately.
And that's kind of how you have to play against a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, because you could see, I think, from everything we saw throughout the game that they did plan on him playing because they had a spy.
Yep.
I thought they did a really good job of not over pursuing on the ends. Everyone stayed in their lanes on the defensive line. They didn't get caught up too far upfield where he could take off running.
Right.
They were in a tough spot. No Jaquan Brisker.
Right.
No
you are
Kyler
missing
Gordon.
Right. You were missing 2 of your top defensive players.
So you're missing your arguably your best hitter.
Yep. Your defense. Best blitzer, one of your best blitzers.
And you're missing Kyler Gordon, who has turned into one of the top slot corners in football.
Right.
A lot of people said, with Tyreek Stevenson, where do they fit? And Kyler Gordon was just like, cool, I'll play the slot. That's fine. I don't mind.
Right.
For me, the offense came out very flat. Not overly surprised, though.
Right. 5 of the last 8 quarters, 5 of the 8 quarters, first quarters, they've failed to score points.
Well, and I mean, everybody looked at Washington and they said, well, there's no Jonathan Allen, so we can do whatever we want. I mean,
Right.
they still have a lot of really good players on that defensive line. That's why they were able to get rid of Montez Sweat and Chase Young.
Right.
Because they had so many players there, and then obviously new guys too that have stepped up. I thought the defense played, better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. But the problem with the no huddle offense is when you go fast paced, ask Chip Kelly, when you go fast paced, but you go 3 and out, your defense, before they even finished their cup of water, they're back on the field.
Right.
So I thought they did really good buckling down when it got to the red zone. With a mobile quarterback like Jaden Daniels, you're either going to take away the run or you're going to take away the pass. It's hard to take away both. So then you kind of take whatever you can get until you get to the red zone, and then you just kind of get tough and say, okay, we're not going to give up the touchdown. And I don't want to beat on Tariq Stevenson. I mean, there's plenty of show to do that, but take away that 61-yard pass he gave up to McLaurin, there really wasn't a whole lot of, man, the defense got outplayed.
Right.
My pet peeve, man, is when people go out there and they're like, oh my God, look at Jaden Daniels. This dude is a stud. The Bears wish they had him. First off, I don't wish they had Jaden Daniels. I'd much rather have Caleb Williams, and we can get into that later.
Right.
But, the last throw, I mean, it wasn't even a good throw. Like, he didn't even get it to the end zone after the Bears gave him a free 13 yards. He still couldn't get it to the end zone. It just was some fluke play that made the ball land in Noah Brown's hands. I mean, and everybody right away is like, oh, Jaden Daniels extended the play. They were rushing 3.
Right.
Like,
they were rushing 3
against 5. I hope he could run around enough to stay away from 3 guys. Like, he's one of the best running quarterbacks in the game, and they're only rushing 3 guys, and they really weren't even really rushing that. And one of them was being held the entire play. So
right. And I've had a back and forth with some people today. A group chat that I am a part of, and we are very opinionated in there, and at times, do I overreact? Yes. Every fan,
it's the Bear fan in you,
right? Every fan overreacts to some point. At some point in time, you're gonna overreact.
You should have heard the overreactions on the radio today.
Oh, I listened. ESPN 1000, 7 o'clock this morning. I was on listening.
Me too. I was on the way to work. I was like, oh my goodness.
Now, what I will say is you said you differed from my thought process in terms of who's to blame for this game.
Yeah. There's one set person, people, whatever you want to say, that's very, very much to blame for the overreactions today.
So, I mean, we discussed it. Would you like to give your take first, and then I'll follow it up with me and why I feel this person, maybe not directly in this game, but if you look back on the overall situation, I feel is responsible for this. So why don't you go first?
So this season, or the offseason came, drafted Caleb Williams, traded for Keenan Allen, did all these things, drafted Rome Odunze. Everybody got very, very excited. If you look at this team and you look at who they hired as coordinators, mainly let's focus on Shane Waldron and retaining Matt Eberflus. You have a head coach in Matt Eberflus that was kept because the guys will run through a wall for him. He's a great keep everybody together no matter what, fight to the last play type of coach.
Right.
You brought in Shane Waldron. You had to know, looking at this team, they were not ready to compete this year. Shane Waldron is an offensive coordinator that does not have the personnel to run his offense right now.
Right.
Shane Waldron is a 40 pass attempt a game offensive coordinator.
Yep.
He's not looking to run the football. He's not looking to do a lot of the things that all the Bears fans want him to do. All that put together tells me that Ryan Poles was not ready to compete this year. He said, I can fix everything I can fix.
Right.
And then next offseason, we'll fix the offensive line. So Caleb's going to get his experience. They're going to compete in whatever games they compete in. And at the end of the day, wherever they finish, they're looking at next year.
Right.
So we look at every game and we're like, if we had said, oh, they're going to be 4-3 after 7 games, people would have said, well, that's 4 wins. Like we're on the right path.
Right.
But everybody, like the hype starts to build, right? Oh my God, we finally have and then you see Caleb, right? And for the first time, you're like, what's he going to do? And he started off really, really bad.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, he's not quite as bad. And then he's actually even a little better. And then it's like every rep, every game, every quarter, every snap, he's looking better. And the hype starts to build again. It's like, okay, so now this guy is who we thought he was. It is why we drafted him. And then you look at the weapons on the offense. And the defense has played as well as it has. Let's be honest, some of those games turned when the defense took over the game.
Mm-hmm.
Made it really easy for the offense and Caleb to put some points on the board. DeAndre Swift breaking, even yesterday, nothing really even started until DeAndre Swift broke off a 56-yard run.
Yep.
So I mean, and even that was after they force a punt and you get the missed field goal and all that stuff. So I think like we just have to have realistic expectations, which, us Bear fans are the worst at having. We think like, oh, well, look at the weapons we added, Super Bowl.
Right.
But it's just not where they're at. And I think that Shane Waldron was brought in not for this year, but for next year when that offensive line can throw the ball 40 times a game.
So I understand completely what you're saying. At the beginning of the year, I gave it 13 wins. So like clearly I was drinking Kool-Aid. And now for those of you that have watched this show and watched me over the years, at times I can be a little dramatic, just a little bit. And yeah, I was definitely drinking the Kool-Aid and I was being, my obnoxious ace self and picking games I knew they probably wouldn't win. And yes, they're 4-3 right now. As that's great. A winning record, right? You could as easily be 3-4 right now. And yes, I know you barely won the Titans game. You lost the Colts game. So maybe those two, balance each other out. Right. But my thing is, we've watched a lot of really terrible offenses as Chicago Bears fans. Really terrible coaching, really terrible offensive coordinators, head coaches, all that. My biggest problem with yesterday's game isn't so much the fact that, they started slow. It's the fact that they always seem to be underprepared when the game starts. It's like they don't jumpstart until they get punched in the mouth. And then they're like, oh, okay, we're playing football now. We have to go. And I'm going to give you some numbers real quick. Actually, I'll wait a little bit on the numbers. But we look at a situation and I'm going to get into the main reason the main person I'm blaming for all this, but it's kind of a little journey on why. So you go into this offseason knowing you're going to take Caleb Williams number 1 overall. No surprise, everybody knew that. And then you go and you do an extensive offensive coordinating search, which all credit to Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, the organization, because usually they don't do that. Usually they're like, oh, that's the hot name, we'll take him. You interview guys like Cliff Kingsbury, hey, where's he playing at? Washington, right? And you interview all these other guys. You go with Shane Waldron. And my biggest issue with that was, while yes, he made Geno Smith look better, his offense.
He didn't make him look better. He made him a Pro Bowler.
Okay, fair. But the
Like,
offense
we're not
still
talking
won't-
like just a little bit better.
right. I mean, Geno
he
Smith was
saved
out of the
Geno
league.
Smith's
You're right.
career.
You're right. He did save Geno Smith's career. But that offense wasn't anything to like write home about. It was a middle of the pack offense, maybe a top third of the NFL. I get it. It was definitely a different style than Caleb had played in college. So there was going to be some adjustment there. Okay, I get it. Then, we traveled down this road into last season. And let's not all forget that there was a 14-game losing streak.
Yeah, but see, that's the problem, though. Everyone keeps taking last week.
I know.
It's not the same team.
I know. It's not the same team, and I know that they
Not
were
the same
not built
team,
to
not the same
win.
quarterback,
Right. They weren't
none
built
of it's
to
the
win.
same.
I get it. And yeah, while this person kept the team together for the most part, I'm good with it. We've also watched this same person screw up on clock management multiple times over the last few years. And I get it. You're a new coach. You got to learn. This is year 4. Screw up on challenging plays or not challenging plays multiple times. Failing to put aces in their places on certain situations in a game where you think, hey, this makes more sense.
No pun intended, right?
No. I said it and I was going to say that, but for instance, the goal line.
My wife caught it. Don't worry.
The goal line that they decided to hand the ball to a offensive lineman who I think maybe had one carry prior in his entire career, in a situation where your offense hadn't moved the ball at all.
I mean, but isn't that the best time to try something like that when your offense is just running in place?
Maybe, or
I mean,
maybe what you need to do is give the ball to one of the 3 running backs you have on this team that have carried the ball quite a bit.
Well, I've heard people all day take this same take.
Yeah.
That it was the wrong time to run it. They have no business running it. Blah, 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 blah. Enter shot at Eberflus, whatever you want it to be. But that's what it's been all day about this play. First off, that play call is a Shane Waldron play call. True. Not a Matt Eberflus call.
I agree with that.
We'll also have Matt Eberflus, who's a defensive head coach.
Right.
At that point, he probably was talking to the defense because you've just got 1st and goal and you're going to get your defense ready for the next possession. So he probably wasn't worried about what play are we running right now. It's 1st and goal. He said in his press conference, or it might have been today, I'm not sure which one it was, they've got several goal-to-go plays.
Right. Yeah. He said that today on ESPN.
From the 1-yard line, they have several plays that they like to go with. They go with the one they think they have the best bet. If it's not there, they go to the next. They've practiced that play 50 times, he said. They were very confident it will work. Honestly, when I looked at it, the person I thought was at fault for that fumble was Caleb Williams.
It did look like he didn't put the ball where it needed to be.
When you have somebody who isn't a pure running back, you usually see the quarterback stop and force the ball into their stomach. There's nowhere else to go for the ball but for them to grab it.
Yep.
However, what did Caleb Williams do? He drifted. And as he drifted, his arms came up and the ball hit him in the chest.
Yep. I agree. Now,
he's not a running back. You know that's an offensive lineman. You're
right, and that's what I was just going to say. Like Caleb should realize it's not a running back, so they're not going to be able to. He wasn't going to be able to make the adjustment that a normal running back would be able to make in that situation. So I agree with you on that.
And you obviously don't call a play thinking, well, we're going to fumble it right here.
Right.
You're thinking, okay, we're going to hand it off. He might not get in. Cool. We go to our next play.
Right.
My
only problem with it is the play calling it still doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. You don't utilize your tight end hardly at all yesterday. And I got some numbers and I'm going to give them to you. We do have a little surprise guest that's going to jump in right now. And we'll talk a little bit more about yesterday's game. So I'm going to bring him on. Our boy Mike is going to jump in and join us.
The honeymoon stage is over. That's my point. It's like, we thought shit was gonna be so sweet, and now you're really looking at it and you're like, you know what, maybe she is toxic. And if you add Bellinger into that, I think it's a very successful offseason on top of looking at the prospects that you're. Follow my guys. Always check out their StreamYards, check out their YouTubes up here. They do great stuff, and I listen to them weekly, so you guys should too.
All right, our boy Mike Hughes coming on to chat a little bit. Mike, it's always nice to have you on. It's been a while. Yeah. I bumped into you a few weeks back at the Cubs game.
Horrible day.
Yeah, it was a rough game for the Cubs. But Turtle and I right now, we were just kind of talking about who we felt was more to blame for yesterday's loss. And Turtle gave the probably the underreaction, logical thought process on the whole thing. And me, sometimes I tend to overreact a little bit. I personally believe that the coaches cost them this game. Now, granted, the Bears had no reason being in this position they were in. This game should have been a blowout. And, I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Real quick, I just want to ask you guys. I'm going to give you a couple numbers, and I want to know if you guys know what these are. Okay. 98.1%, 98.2%, 91%, and 96.4%. Do you guys know what those percentages are for?
I'm going to say either Jaden Daniels or Torrey Taylor.
So those percentages are the 4 losses in the last 2 years where the Bears have had a 90% or better shot at winning in the fourth quarter and found a way to lose the game. 3 of those games, they were up by double digits and lost those games. While player execution is a massive part of this game, and I'm not going to discredit any of the players that made mistakes, you are the coach. The head coach oversees it all. I get it. Shane Waldron called this play. The defense ran that play. You're the head coach. Your job is to be in control of both sides of the ball, whether you're offensive or defensive minded, and really special teams as well. That's the job of a head coach. I give credit. I've been ridiculed this morning about not being fair to Matt Eberflus and saying that I blame him for everything. I don't. I think he did a great job last season keeping everything together when it looked early on like it was going to fall all apart. It had saved his job. But Mike, I want your thoughts on what you felt was the biggest reason that the Bears gave this game away.
Yeah, I mean, I was very vocal about it yesterday, about it being a coaching thing, but that was just me talking shit. That's what it is. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed for me with Matt Eberflus or anything else. Like I can't blame Flus for this, because as another man that has aspirations and dreams, I wouldn't ask him to quit his job today. But I can blame Ryan Poles for putting this offensive line out there. I can blame Ryan Poles for still having Matt Eberflus at this point in time, knowing you have a generational caliber quarterback on a rookie deal. I talk about it a lot about how, I feel it. And I said it in the honeymoon stage when Hard Knocks was trying to get you to fall in love with Flus's beard and his little house on the lake and like all that cute shit. I'm not falling for it whatsoever, because I remember the Broncos game. After they just got dog walked 70 points by the Dolphins the week before, and I remember losing that. We're talking about Justin Fields versus Russell Wilson. I remember Russell Wilson outplaying Justin Fields in that fourth quarter, and Justin Fields throwing a horrible ball and Cole Kmet getting outmanned by a 5'10" safety to lose that game when we had the lead in the fourth quarter. Like, this is a guy who made history last year with the Chicago Bears. The most fourth quarter blown leads in NFL history in a single season. And I think for me, that's it's not Flus' fault going into this year, because it's like your girl cheats on you and then you end up back with her again and then she cheats on you again and you're looking at yourself like you're crazy. Like, nah, dog. Like, he's shit. He's been shit. Great DC, great coordinator. He's done great things for this defense. Javon Dexter Sr. And everybody else. Taylor coming into the building. I think he's been a great plug-in guy. I don't even really want another pass rusher. I think Taylor's been great if you really watch the packages they're putting in. But I don't pay you to be a defensive coordinator. I pay you to be the head coach of this team. And for the third straight time in a row, I think the Bears are going to have a rookie quarterback who loses his head coach going into his second year. You have Trubisky and Fox, then you have Fields and Nagy, and you're going to have Caleb and Flus. And I think that's really what it's going to come down to. And unfortunately, because of the McCaskey family, you know what, kind of answering your question now, like saying it out loud, I don't even think I can blame Poles. I think it's such a higher up thing where you're so afraid to bring in a legitimate offensive mind to just control the reins of the identity of this team. You're afraid to get away from George Halas's smash mouth football that's 1920s-esque. Like, it's just not, it's not going anymore. Like, it's fucked up to me, Turtle, Ace, that I'm sitting here right now, and if you told me back in May, June, what the identity of this offense would be, if you would have told me it was DeAndre Swift out of everybody, out of DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, Caleb Williams, it's fucking DeAndre Swift is the identity of this offense in week 8. That's when he has the same amount of rushing yards than Caleb does passing. Like, that's fucked up. Like, and I can't blame Flus for that because he don't know how to fix it. But I'm not quitting my job tomorrow because I'm not good at what I do. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I'm getting my money. Like, at the end of that mansion they showed on Hard Knocks ain't gonna pay for itself.
No, definitely not.
It's not.
That's a nice little place for him.
It's on Poles. It's on Poles and it's on ownership for pulling out this offensive line. We knew it wasn't good.
Right.
We knew they
Let
couldn't
me
really make
let me ask you
changes.
something. Everybody wants to throw. Well, Ryan Poles didn't do this. Ryan Poles did.
Sure.
So how is he supposed to fix everything in one offseason?
I don't think you do. I don't think you do at all.
So if I told you going into this season, if I told you the beginning of the offseason that the Ryan Poles was going to fix absolutely everything about this team, and all that was going to be left to fix was the offensive line, you were going to have a top 10 defense, if not better than that. You were going to have a generational talented quarterback. You were going to have the most weapons that this offense has ever had in any of our lifetimes. All that was going to have to be fixed was 2 to maybe 3 spots on the offensive line, and you're going to have a first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, and tons of cap space. You wouldn't think that the organization's in a good spot?
I would look at you and say, you have a general manager who used to be an offensive lineman, correct?
Yep.
And you bring in Sheldon and Bates, who Bates didn't even start on his
what
old
was
team.
he
Wait,
supposed
I just want you to know where I'm coming from.
I'm just trying to figure out what was he supposed to bring in? Just like everybody says when he should
Anything.
have got rid of Eberflus, who should he have gotten?
Well, see,
Everyone
and
says
I
really-
agree with that.
Everyone says he should have went and got Ben Johnson, but Ben Johnson doesn't want to go anywhere.
Ben Johnson doesn't want to go anywhere.
That's
Right,
why
and
I don't blame
I
him.
wouldn't want to go anywhere either if I'm putting up 52
I'm
points
just
a game
saying, like,
on the
it's
Detroit
really
Lions.
easy to say right now after a loss like that. It's really easy to say fire everybody. They all suck. Poles
Sure.
didn't do a good enough job. Flus is a horrible coach. At the end of the day, they're going to win 8 to 10 games this year.
And that's
You're
okay.
going to look at it and go, he deserves to have another year as head coach
Oh
because
God, I hope not.
you hire a guy to win football games, right?
Right.
So if
But
he
what is
wins
what
football
is
games-
your standard? Like,
So-
Turtle, what do you want to see from the Bears?
right now at 4-3? First off, this year I want to see Caleb Williams get better every week.
I
Okay.
agree with that. That's something
And
we
how
talked
and how do
about
you do
start-
that?
I think he's getting the experience now. If you can go make those moves, whether he gets a guy at the deadline, it's all in the offseason. We get a free agent. We draft a couple offensive linemen.
Right.
Like, you look at the defense, there's not many holes on it.
I love the defense.
Yeah.
Never been
Okay,
an
so
issue.
now you
know
look
what
at
I mean?
the offense, outside of offensive line, not really any holes on it. There's
I
a lot
would
of te-
I
there's
would
a lot
agree
of
with
teams
that.
in the NFL that wish that's where their team stood right now, is
For
that
sure.
all they had to
Now-
do was upgrade the offensive
But
line.
let me
Let's
ask you
play-
this.
Go ahead.
Because Ace and I have talked about this for 2 years. Like, okay, so how long has Ryan Poles been the general manager of the Chicago Bears?
Was this his third year?
Third or fourth year?
And how many offensive linemen that are starting on this offensive line were drafted in the first 3 rounds since he's been here? You
Hardly
got
any.
Darnell Wright, and that's
Right,
it.
just Darnell Wright.
And
Right.
when you
With
look at
Kevin
this
Jenkins.
organization, let's say my lifetime and your lifetime, we could just everybody sit up here. We could all agree that more times than not, they've never had a line and they've never really addressed that line. You kind of look at maybe the Jay Cutler era, you can kind of make that conversation. And for the 5 minutes that Charles Leno Jr. was solid, and you know,
Orlando
Bobby
Brown,
Massey,
think, right?
you know,
He
like
was on that team,
guys had some moments, and that's cool. But more times than not, it's been shit. When you have a guy like this, and you're trying to bring in, which is the big X word they've used all offseason long, continuity. Okay, cool. You got continuity, but unfortunately, your continuity is shit. That's just what it is at the end of the day. Like, Turtle, I hear you. You know, it was Jim Harbaugh going to fix it.
Name me an offensive lineman that they should have brought in.
I could do that. We could go up and list the free agents right now, and I could tell you right now, I'll take a guy. Turtle, look at me dead in my eyes.
Everybody said go spend all the money like the Jets did and get yourself a left tackle. And that in Tehran, whatever his name is, to play for the Cowboys, he's a turnstile this year.
And that's cool. But I'll tell you this right now. I will take a kid.
On him?
I will go north right now. Go to Northwestern University, grab me a guard, and I'll tell Nate Davis to get the fuck out of here.
Right, but that's not what I asked you.
But I'm asking you. So I'm looking at you.
They were supposed to get in the offseason.
I'm looking at you. You want me to sit here and kind of break down every single guy they should have brought in?
Everybody.
That's not my job.
Right. So hold on.
But you know what I mean?
I want to say something
all
real
the people
quick.
want to jump on and say, well, they should have gone and got offensive linemen, but nobody knows who that guy is.
Right. You're right. You're right on that, but also the fact I got problems with using a 4th round pick on a punter. I get it. The dude's good. I understand the logic behind it.
I love Torrey.
So who would you have taken in the 4th round?
I'm not saying that, but you could have packaged. Hold on.
That's what everybody wants to do. Everybody wants to just throw shots and say they shouldn't have done this, they shouldn't have done that. Nobody knows what they should have done.
Let me finish. Right. I don't get paid to know that though.
Right. And Ryan,
but my logic was Turtle, hold on. My logic with it was, could you have paired that 4th round with another pick, moved up in the draft and grabbed somebody, a 3rd rounder, late 2nd rounder? We all agree the offensive line is an issue. My biggest worry about the offensive line being an issue is Caleb's development is the biggest thing going into the end of this season, right? And if he is getting annihilated and he's unable to do what he needs to do to develop better, all we're doing is basically having to redshirt this first year. And now, okay, we upgraded the offensive line. And yes, I get it. There's plenty of teams
better now than he did at the beginning of the year.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, but they're doing what you want him to do. You want him to look better.
I get it. But just hold on. Let me just finish my thought. Let me just finish. Turtle, let me just finish my thought. My biggest thing right now is, as much as the offensive line has struggled, I don't feel like Shane Waldron has utilized the scheme in the best way possible to protect his quarterback at times. Now, again, I'm not blaming it all on Flus. I think it's a lot of small things that are all just kind of rolling together. And while we rode the high of those last 2 games before the bye week, and I was chilling on the couch, not stressed at all, we have to look at the situation. And yes, I know the team wasn't built to win the last couple of years, but Matt Eberflus's record against winning teams is putrid. It's 1-13 against winning teams, and that's not good. What I need to see going forward is, one, you have to win these next 2 games. You can't lose them. And then you go into a very difficult stretch with 6 divisional games, the 49ers and Seattle thrown into that mix. Yeah. This game was so pivotal to win for playoff standing purposes mostly, that you've put yourself behind the 8 ball going into the hardest part of your schedule. And while playoffs wasn't my need for this season, I think it's a need for this organization. I think they need to show, like, yeah, we talked all about, that we're bringing Flus back. And like Mike said on Hard Knocks, like they tried to paint this picture like the Bears were ready. They really did. Like,
remember when Bayless Jones had his own episode?
Yeah. I mean,
Bayless
trust me, that was
Turtle, would you agree with me on that one? Bayless Jones gets his own episode, and we're like,
I came on this show and said how lousy Hard Knocks was.
that was so
me and Turtle
ass.
were hot. Me and Turtle were the only two guys that agreed on this whole
But that's
little
what they're paid to do.
USN.
They're paid
No,
to
for
pay
sure,
like
for sure.
Right.
you should care about the Bears.
Yeah, it was the
I think-
wildest thing.
I think it's fair to point criticism to Ryan Poles right now.
Sure.
Anybody
and I love
Ryan
Poles.
Poles hasn't done a beyond great job as
Oh,
GM.
he's done a
I think he's done
phenomenal
great.
job.
But also and I'm not saying that the misses were huge misses by any means. And when he has
Every
missed,
GM
he's
has
made up
huge
for
misses.
Right.
Because if you're not
Now,
taking huge risks, you're not.
My biggest issue, and I know that this was a sensitive topic for the group chat that we're in, but you get an opportunity to trade a guy like Bayless Jones, who's proven in the last 2 years he's not reliable for you for a pick. Whether that's smokescreen or not, whatever.
Yeah, I never really felt like anybody.
I don't think
really
anybody
wanted
was
him.
interested in Velas Jones.
And not for a 4th round pick for sure.
Probably for a 7th round pick.
But you're looking at a situation where I'm very concerned about what happens if this goes sideways, because there is the possibility for it to go sideways very quickly here. You play an Arizona Cardinals team where if Kyler Murray decides to play lights out, like I don't know if you can keep up with that team. Then you go and play New England, who they're one of if not the worst teams in the NFL this year. But then you play the Packers, who I am petrified to play against.
Why? What petrifies you about the Packers?
Well, because they haven't beaten them. Until it's one of those show me before I believe in you.
But this team hasn't played them. Like everybody,
but every year we say the same thing. This team hasn't
I don't
played
care
them.
about every year.
Right, I get it, and I understand what you're saying about
all
this
I've
year.
heard
But the record is the record for a reason. It's a long enough span.
So you don't look at the Minnesota Vikings and watch them play and see Sam Darnold come back down to earth and play like the Sam Darnold we know and go, oh, I think the Bears have a good shot against them.
I didn't even get to the Vikings.
No, but I'm just saying, like, everybody.
I think they have a shot against the Vikings.
Everybody, including you, just say like, "Oh my God, we have to play 6 division games." Good.
Right.
I haven't seen anybody in the division that I don't think the Bears have a chance to beat. No one in the division.
If they play the way, if they play with an offensive scheme the way that they played against the Colts and the way they played against the Commanders, I do think that those games are not as close.
Play the way they played against certain teams they lost to, they don't stand a chance.
My
board plays the way they played against bad teams.
Right. I get it. The what if game. I understand it.
So I mean, like,
all we can do is be in.
All I'm saying is like everybody's ready to. Oh my God, this game was a must win. Why was it a must win? If they go rattle off 4 wins in a row, no one will even care about this game. Like
yes, that's true.
But everybody's right now like, oh my God, the world is falling apart because they lost this game on a fluke play.
I think it's more the fact that the offense looked so miserable for 3 quarters.
But the offense did enough to put themselves in a position to win. Which at the end of the day, that's really all you care about is a win, right? Not if it's pretty, just a win. Because Kansas City,
there are trends within this team right now, and I mentioned it earlier. 5 of the 8 games that they've played, they failed to score first quarter points.
Who cares?
If you go up,
all that matters is the end score. Who cares if you score in the first?
But it does matter, because if you go up in competition, going down and not being able to produce points early on when you're trying to stay with the team is only going to make it that much more difficult for you to come back in the fourth quarter.
Who don't score much in the first quarter either.
Okay, but Patrick Mahomes is on that team, and Andy Reid's is the coach, and they won 2 Super Bowls.
Draft Caleb Williams because you think he's going to be Patrick Mahomes?
Well, I didn't draft him, and I think putting the Patrick Mahomes moniker on him is a bit extreme.
It's a little soon.
The Bears draft him?
Yes, probably. But also, Patrick Mahomes has 3 Super Bowl rings.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of levels to it, and I think
there's nuance to every conversation, and I understand.
But we went on this show, and you yourself said, "I think he's a Patrick Mahomes type talent."
I do. I think he has the ability to get to that point at some point. This is year 1 of that,
in any game. Like, didn't he?
Year 1,
he could turn it on when you need it.
But it's year 1. That's all I'm saying is
if
you don't produce points in the first quarter most of the time, if you don't produce points in the first quarter, most of the time, other teams are going to produce points.
All I'm saying is you're looking at everything like right now. Nobody drafted.
That's all I can look at
Williams
it right
for
now. I can't
now.
look at it any other way than
Look at
right
it
now.
for what it is. It's a big picture. You're looking at the small picture. They didn't draft Caleb Williams to win a Super Bowl this year.
Well, no, they did not. But they also
So when Peyton Manning set the record for interceptions in year 1, was everybody going, "Oh my God"?
it was a different time in the NFL, though. Like that's the thing. It was a different time in the NFL.
It's still the same thing. Everybody's taking a big picture and they want to look at, because if that play gets knocked down at the goal line, none of these conversations are happening.
I mean, I still think there's conversations to talk about how the offense struggled for most
It's
of that
just
game.
it's just not mainstream.
Right,
You
but
know
it's
what I mean?
right. It's just not as bad because of
like I don't think
and this and that and
yeah, I couldn't turn on the TV once today without seeing that play get played.
and I don't
again.
think
And
Jaden
that's-
Daniels played that well either.
He didn't.
And
I don't
they're
think he did.
they're
He
gonna
wasn't able
compare,
to.
like,
He wasn't able to score touchdowns. The only
Right,
touchdown he had in that
well,
game.
and all you're going to
He
hear
didn't
about
play
is,
well.
oh, the Bears regret drafting Caleb instead. I don't regret that decision. I think it's possible to have more than one good quarterback come out of a draft. And I think that the situation is fluid, as most things are in sports.
Yeah.
Right. But there are little things that continuously happen that I talked about it on Friday with Tarbill, because Tarbill said, you know,
Where is
Flu
Tarbill?
says he's busy tonight. And this was supposed to be
What a
Friday,
guy.
but
What a guy.
we talked about it Friday about how there's some things that Flus does clock management wise, challenge wise, that concern me. And he goes,
Timeouts that just get wasted. And
right. And
the first 2 minutes of a game.
Tarbill's take was, oh, well, the last 2 games, did you have any problems? I said, no, but when you're winning by 30 points,
Yeah.
those aren't magnified like that. But when you're losing by 5 or winning by 3, those, or losing by 3, like those are magnetized. And that's just the way it is. And
listen, nobody should be trying to convince you that he's a great coach, because he's done nothing to show you that he is.
right.
No.
And I agree with
I
that.
think like Turtle,
But all
to
day-
your point, can I get your opinion on something? Because like this is what I've seen thus far. Like I was a Jaden fan, but I was also a Fields fan. I love Caleb, and I think Caleb's gonna be good, and I do believe that. Now the difference between good and great, I haven't seen yet. The last 2 weeks prior to this game, you know, we're like on our high horses and we're talking shit because, you know, Caleb's doing his thing in London, Caleb's doing his thing in Carolina. He's dog walking them, and that's what you expect from the number 1 overall pick. The guys on those teams are sorry as shit, and they're probably not going to be in the league for the majority on the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Carolina Panthers in the next 4 or 5 years. I mean, the majority of them. I think that's really a safe thing to bet, especially on Carolina. Now, my problem is you looked great against some of the worst teams in the league, and that's perfectly fine. But when you look at against how he looked against the Rams, when you look at how he looked against the Texans, when you look how he looked against all these different teams, I mean, hell, I understand it was his first game in the NFL, but even that Titans game should have been a dog walk, and it wasn't. And I think for me, where you're kind of talking about watching him grow and develop, I have a hard time seeing him be able to do that on his own, because that's how it looks. It doesn't look
Why
like
do you say the Titans game should have been a dog walk
because they're a fucking trash team.
with a really good defense that is made better.
They're
offense.
dogs. And what are we? But what did
Right,
you
but
say?
what are we?
But
Bears
what
are
did you
not a
say?
good offense right
But
now.
what did you say?
But
Is
we're
he
a good
supposed to
defense.
be like Patrick
We're a
Mahomes?
good
Is that what you said?
I said you drafted him because you think he's going
Because
to
you think he
become
can
Patrick
be,
Mahomes.
right?
Not because he is. See, everybody looks at
So,
like,
but wait, but
everybody
you do this thing. I fuck with you. I think you're dope. But you do this thing where it's like it's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's like, oh well, he can be this. Okay, then be this. Because
Well, he's
what did
not
you
that
say?
now,
The
and it's
greatest
unrealistic.
offseason for any number 1 overall pick to ever go into, and you look like shit against the Titans. And that's okay. It's your first game. I didn't hoe him for it. I didn't think it was a big deal. I was at the game. Was I a little upset? We paid $300 for nosebleeds and he didn't get 1 touchdown out of it. I was a little pressed, just a little bit. But shout out Simone Biles' husband, kind of saved the day. But you know, for me, man, it's really just one of those things where what is going to make him great? Because you look at this offensive line that Ryan Poles has had control of for the last 3 seasons. And that's not about 1 year. You're not going to fix everything in one day. But when you look at it and you look, okay, Tevin Jenkins, you didn't draft him. Whether you like him or not, I don't know. You know, we had the little disgruntle in the very beginning where maybe he didn't want to be here. Maybe he did. Seems like he's all in. But right now, you look at that line, the left side of it, is awful. You have an unproven center and kind of like a debate about whether it's going to be the guy who didn't even start last year or the guy who was average for the Los Angeles Rams, and you're putting him in a position to not succeed. When you talk about Caleb Williams and Patrick Mahomes went into that situation with the head coach who is still currently his head coach, with an offensive line that was built to be a top 10 offensive line at that point. And even though they're not as good as they once were, they're still a hell of a lot better than us. So my only problem, Turtle, is how are you going to get from good to great? And you can't do that on your own as a quarterback in this league because we've seen it time and time again. We saw Jay Cutler, all the talent in the world. And I don't think any Bears fan would ever tell you he didn't have it. Whether you think it's his mentality or what, the reality is he had 6 offensive coordinators in 8 seasons. You have Mitch Trubisky, who has 2 head coaches in a span of 2 years in his first 2 years in the NFL. You got Justin Fields. How many offensive coordinators did he fucking have? My problem, Turtle, is you went into this season. If you had a shadow of a doubt, I don't care if it was Jim Harbaugh, I don't care if it was Ben Johnson, I don't care if you go to fucking UIC and you find out the football guy might want to play for the Chicago Bears. Whoever it was, you had to look at them and say, I could see him being here for the foreseeable future. If there's any doubt in your mind that, not that Flus can't do his job defensively, but when you have that revolving door of offensive coordinators and that horrible offensive line, Caleb's never going to be able to have success. Rome Odunze, why can't Rome get tick? Why can't Rome get anything going? Because he's a deep ball guy, and Caleb has less than a second before somebody's in his fucking face. Why does Rome look bad? Because he doesn't have enough time to do what he did in Washington. And that, for me, is my biggest grievance, where it's like, I understand Ryan Poles, masterclass. This is the greatest general manager I've probably seen. And I know that's a little biased because on my end, but like what he's been able to do with this team over the last 3 years is phenomenal. But what's going to be the difference between same old Bears and this new generation? Like that's really what it's going to come down to. And what it always comes down to is, yeah, we just don't got the coach for it, or oh, we don't got the quarterback for it, or oh, our line sucks and the defense is great, but we have to fix it
for both of you guys.
10 wins.
If they finish with 10 wins, that's cool.
Then Eberflus should be fired and Waldron should.
No, I don't think he will get fired.
Because what do you care about? What do you Turtle, what really real quick though, like what is the importance? Is the importance winning 10 games this season, or is the importance developing Caleb Williams to beat Patrick Mahomes? If you win 10 games
this year, Caleb Williams has developed. Otherwise you haven't.
Because look at the games we've already won.
No, I don't care about anything that's happened from that till now. I'm talking about from now to the rest of the season.
And what if he plays the way he does?
Finish.
Go ahead.
Wins. If you get to 10, it means you get 6 more wins against what everybody's calling a very hard schedule the rest of the way. If you win 6 of those games, it means Caleb Williams is playing his ass off.
And did Mitch Trubisky win 12 games in 2018?
I don't care about Mitchell.
But was he a good quarterback?
You look at them and know the difference.
But you know what I'm trying to say? Like, you can't develop these
I think
guys.
the fact is, like, and I talked about this in my group chat because I had a heated 3-hour conversation about yesterday's game.
I believe it.
And we got to a point where it was like 2 things can be true at the same time. And that's what, we get in these debates and we get in, our thoughts start flowing and we're like, well, no, this is that. And it is possible to see a Bears team win 10 games, Caleb not look good. It is possible for them to win 10 games and Caleb to look phenomenal. My thing is, I want to know from both of you, what is a realistic thing do you guys think that the Bears are going to try to address the offensive line in the trade?
No,
because I don't know how
most teams don't trade offensive line.
Right.
There's nobody. If you're getting somebody, they're not worth getting at that point, really.
No, and at this point, they don't know the offense. They don't know it. Like it's not worth it at this point. You're better.
I don't even think we know the offense though. To
free agency than you are trading for somebody right now.
Yeah,
My thing is, I'm not saying Matt Eberflus is the guy. I'm not saying Shane Waldron is the guy.
Okay.
All I'm saying is I'm not ready right now at this point in the season to say neither one of them is good enough to win with.
Yeah. But does it frustrate you at any point? Because like here's my thing, right? And it's like little things, little nuances that you kind of notice. Like when DJ Moore points out in a post-game interview how frustrated he is with the offense and how it's going. And you kind of see him physically distraught during games, which we saw him with Luke Getsy and them boys last year and Tyson Bagent. He didn't look this hot. And now you're seeing Caleb Williams look frustrated on the sideline. He's talking about how he's not really understanding what's going on right now. They're meeting with Shane Waldron, telling him in week 3, dude, you got to be fucking better. And that, like, when your players are kind of vocally going through that already 3 weeks into the season, and now we're in week 8 and we're still kind of having these same conversations, whether it's Flus or not, because I think we'd all agree Flus has done a great job as a DC, and I think once he really took that over from whatever the fuck was the DC of last year, because there's a lot going on with that motherfucker. But, I think for me, really just understanding who's good at what. What are we doing? And what is the identity? And Turtle, when I first came on and I said, if you would have told me back in June that DeAndre Swift was going to be the identity of the Bears offense this year, I think we'd all be heavily disappointed. And that's no knock on DeAndre Swift.
It's 100% truth.
And that's my problem, because you look at Shane Waldron, everybody was going to sit up here and tell me, yo, Jackson Smith and Jigba, you got Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, Geno Smith. He rose Geno from the ashes. That's all great. He can do that here. And then I'm watching DJ Moore, one of the better deep ball threats on this entire team, run everything less than 10-yard routes. He's running curls. He's running 10 and ins, 10 and outs, 5 and ins. And I'm like, what? This isn't fucking DJ's scheme. Keenan Allen is just a decoy guy, and Roma Dunze is just chilling. And Cole Kmet's got a fucking, everybody, all the announcers last night, oh, where's Cole Kmet? Where's Cole Kmet? He's got a fucking block. He's blocking the entire time. He can't fucking do anything. He can't fucking play his own position, because you can't give him a shot to. He's got to make up for Braxton Jones tearing his bitch ass again. You got to make up for all these other guys. Nate Davis, who just doesn't want to play football. And that's real. Nate Davis just doesn't want to play football. So to what Turtle said earlier, well, what offensive lineman would you have brought in? Any of them. Any of them, because this guy every offseason, I'm not here, I'm not showing up. I'll show up today, but I won't play the next 2 days. And it's like, now you're here and you're hurt. And I love when I see Nate Davis on the injury report. And then once the Bears get an injury on that offensive line, they roll him out. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, but you're cool now, right? Yeah. You're cool to play now. It's all good. It's all fine and dandy. Like, get out of here, bro. Like, so my thing is, in Ace, it's always kind of been that, like, again, Turtle, if you hear me, I love you. Like, I listen to what y'all do, and I love your opinion. But, like, my thing is, like, as a fan to a fan, it's what are we going to do to change what we've already seen? I'm tired of we have a top 5 defense. I'm tired, we run the ball well and we get wins. Like, we won 7 games last year. Or I don't remember how many games we won last year. But like, okay, we won 7 games, but the understanding was Justin Fields wasn't getting better in those 7 games. You know what I mean? And that was my big thing, is like when we talk about, oh, well, if we win 10 games, it means Caleb's looking better.
My laptop was dying.
All good, handsome. I missed your face though. But Mike, my thing, and Turtle, I was kind of saying, like, so we won 7 games last year, right? And
I heard it.
We were nice. We were a little nice. I remember we won 7 straight not too long ago with Justin Fields, but I don't think any of us was really like, yeah, man, we're doing it. Like, this is it. He's looking better, and that's my biggest fear is, okay, we're going to win some of these games, but how is he getting better? You look at his percentage, you look at, okay, this is another donut on the board. You got 3 donuts on the year of not throwing a touchdown in a game. Now, no interceptions, so I'm happy with that.
Right.
But like, I'm not paying you to be Brock Purdy. I didn't draft you number 1 to just kind of be there and get the win. Like, when you want to develop somebody to be that next Patrick Mahomes, you actually have to have the pieces around him to do so. And I don't think anywhere from top to bottom, outside of maybe the front office, because I do love the guys in the front office from top to bottom, I don't think they really put anybody in position to really have success. I don't think they have the quarterbacks coach for it. I would even go as far as to say, Turtle, I don't know how you feel about it. Ace, I told you this earlier. I would have called Ryan Tannehill. Hey, man, you want to be a backup just to mold this kid? Because we got the number 2 quarterback for the Bears as an undrafted rookie from a D2 school. Right. Like, I love Tyson Bagent. Tattoos are dope. You look like Machine Gun Kelly if you played football. That's fun. But, like, what are you teaching Caleb Williams? When you talk about Mahomes, who had Andy Reid and Matt Nagy, and then, oh, okay, cool, look at this. Who's your backup? Alex Smith, a franchise quarterback. Kind of like what we did with Andy Dalton and Nick Foles with Justin Fields. You tried it. Didn't really work, but you tried it, and I respected that. You know what I mean? It's better than Mike Glennon with Mitch Trubisky
Right.
or Tyson Bagent, who I love Tyson, but it's like to mold potentially the next Patrick Mahomes, you have a defensive-minded head coach, a D2 school backup quarterback who went undrafted, and Shane Waldron, who now is showing me he's just Bill Lazor without a beard, and that's just really what it is. And it's like that he's not Luke Getsy bad, but it's just kind of there.
You put anything into that it takes even offensive coordinators sometimes a little bit to just find a groove with the pieces they have.
Sure.
Like,
and I think offensive line is a problem with that as well because you can't do everything with what you have.
We're talking about all these new pieces that Shane Waldron has to work with too.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get Caleb out there and like, I think I see, I don't think, I know, I see even in that Washington game, there's plays that you see Caleb make and you're like, okay, this kid has it.
Right. For sure. He makes those plays though. You know what I mean? Like what I'm trying to get at is like I see his success, but I haven't seen the success of the offensive line. You know what I mean? Or the offensive scheme.
I'm with you. I totally agree because the offense is not putting up the numbers we expected it to through 8 weeks.
Even just like, would you say like this is for both of you? I know I'm yapping, but like Turtle got me going, and I think he's good at getting people going. But like, okay, so. If yesterday we saw Rome run a deep ball, we saw DJ run a post, and Caleb Williams overthrows him by 30 yards, I'd shit my pants. I'd be lit because I'd be like, oh my God, we're taking deep shots. And that's where I'm like, it's fucking week 8. DJ Moore is still running 10-yard routes. Like at some point you got to figure that out.
That's something that's bothered me too this season is the fact that DJ has been used in such a weird way to start the season. And there's
a graphic on it of this year versus last year. It's like.
The hard part, though, is if you look at the line last year, you look at the line this year.
It's the same line.
It's the same line, but it almost was better at times last year than it was this year.
I think
now is that Justin's ability to,
and that's what I was going to say. That's
Justin's ability to.
No, you don't see Justin's ability. It was Justin going one read, I'm off.
That's true.
It's like Jaden Daniels does. Jaden Daniels goes one. They cut the field in half,
right?
And they say only read these 2 receivers. If they're not open, you're running.
Right.
That's cool, but that's not how you develop a quarterback.
Right. It's not sustainable.
Sure.
So Caleb, you see Caleb go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm hitting the back.
I see him running. He's still looking for the throw. Like you know what I mean? Like he wants to throw
it. Positive, right?
So it is a positive
that we wanted to see out of a quarterback because that was one of the criticisms with Justin was he doesn't take the time to let the play develop before he decides to run.
So now everybody said we want to go deep, but if you can't protect Caleb, what's the point of going deep to get Caleb killed?
Right.
Nothing.
And that's like that's the situation we're in, like that double-edged sword, right?
So now we're asking Shane Waldron, hey, we know you want to take the deep shots, but you can't.
Right. But that's the Ryan Poles thing we talked about earlier, though.
Offense look really, really good in a different offense than you run.
For sure. For sure. But when we talk about we talked earlier, like what was my only knock on Ryan Poles? Because I don't blame him for flus. I've told Ace this. I don't believe he made that hire. I believe that was the McCaskies. Hey, you got to do what you got to do. Get your defensive minded guy, Midwest guy, cool, whatever. You know, he had the button up, pull up when he pulled up. Cool, whatever. If he fits the mold, he fits the mold. But my thing is, you've had 3 years to get this line ready for Caleb Williams' debut, and it just isn't where you want it to be. You've had 3 off seasons, 3 drafts, and you had Rome Odunze when you already had let's play devil's advocate, right? I love Rome. I want Rome on this team. I want to say that first and foremost. But when you already have Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, and you get cute by adding another wide receiver, I understand Keenan's old as shit, probably doesn't even want to be here. But the reality is, what was more important? Bringing in a number 1 wide receiver when we already have DJ Moore, or bringing in a center for this team? Bringing in an offensive lineman who is going to be here for the next 4 to 5 years. There's only one guy, I would say, on this entire line that I want to see here next year, and that's Darnell Wright. Outside of Darnell, like, respectfully, I'm not paying Tevin Jenkins this offseason. I don't know about you. I'm good on that, and even when he does, I'm cool. Like I'm okay.
Right, there's nobody on the offensive line where you're like, no, we have to make sure this person stays.
Like gun to your head, Ace. I need you to spend $150 right now on a Bears offensive lineman jersey. What are you doing?
Not buying a jersey.
Shoot me. Like shoot me. Like if
I'll
ask Turtle, if someone put a gun to your head right now, said, hey, I need you to buy a guy on the offensive line's jersey who's going to be here for the next 5 years. You have to get it right. Who is it going to be?
I can't say Darnell Wright, then
Can't say
Tevin
Darnell Wright. It will be here by 2000. Let's say just 2029. You think
Jenkins.
he'll be here?
I mean, I
they
think
both will be. See here, I truly think, and it's gonna suck because you're gonna lose games that you should win this year.
Sure.
But I
Especially
truly
like Minnesota and stuff. Sure.
I truly believe that they are going to heavily address the offensive line because there's so much taken care of now that there's only so little to focus on.
Mhm.
There were opportunities to get difference-making players. I don't know yet if Roma Dunze is a difference-making player, but we all believe he is.
Can be.
We feel like we've seen enough stuff out of him that he can be. Keenan Allen probably won't be here after this year.
right.
You've got Darnell Wright. You've got Tevin Jenkins. I think they sign an established elite offensive lineman in the offseason or trade for one because there are plenty of teams that are going backwards and not forwards that have really good offensive linemen. And then you need to get two more. Well, you have 3 top draft picks that I believe at least 2 of them, if not all 3, will be used on the offensive line. At that point, the offense is really ready to start going. If you really look at teams, offenses usually don't start going till year 2 anyways. Year 1, a lot of guys are learning terminology. A lot of guys are learning how to run routes under that system. Caleb's a rookie quarterback outside of the CJ Stroud last year had a year that
like an anomaly.
Made people think that that's what rookie quarterbacks do, but it's not. It's not who rookie quarterbacks are. Hell, that's not even who a lot of quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence and guys who were supposed to be the next big thing have never turned out to be. But I think you see enough out of Caleb Williams, and you see we want the Bears as Bears fans to be dominant right now,
Right?
Because we see DJ Moore, we see Keenan Allen, we see the defense, we see DeAndre Swift, we see Caleb Williams, and we go, hell, this is the best quarterback we've ever had as a Bears fan, and he ain't even really done nothing yet.
Right.
Don't disrespect Josh McCown like that.
I think a lot of it also has to do with we've watched teams that had a lot of potential, right?
Yep.
The Cutler era, and they were just never able to put it together properly. And I will say, I have so much more faith in Poles to get it in a better direction than what it was with.
I mean, Mike said
Cutler
it best. He's easily the best GM we've ever seen.
Right. Yes, without a doubt. And I think that's where a lot of this back and forth comes from, is because we are so conditioned as Bears fans to look at this potential, and then it just never lives up to the potential.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we usually try to keep the show to an hour, so I'm going to definitely cut it here. But I think we had some hell of conversations. It was fun. Mike, why don't you let all the people know where they can find you if you're not at a Cubs game?
Oh man, well, I'm definitely not at a Cubs game right now. But you can find me Shy Kid, the Shy Kid on Instagram. Always check us out over there. We're doing things, Chicago Sky stuff. We're obviously going to be getting back into that probably in about a few weeks. We'll have some coaching decisions. Turtle, it was great talking to you, brother.
It was great talking to you, man.
Ace, it was great to see you. Tarbell, where the fuck are you?
Every time I got you on, Tarbell's MIA all the time.
Bullshit. You just grab another white guy and you're like, fuck it, he'll work. It's fucked up.
But
enter white guy here.
Yeah. Mike, I appreciate you coming on, man. You've always been good for us. We'll talk soon. And
Yes, sir.
It's been a fun little debate tonight.
Yes, sir. I'll catch you.
I mean, I think you could agree the main thing is that this is what the Bears do to people.
Right.
Like we're so ready for them to be the Kansas City Chiefs and the Dynasty Patriots and those teams that year after year, they're just so much better than everybody else. And you just look like we're so ready for them to be that. There's so many debates and thoughts and difference of opinions back and forth, but that's because that's what Bears fans do. Like that's who Bears fans are. We care about the Bears. We want the Bears to be great. That's why we go back and defend Jay Cutler and go back and talk about teams that they've built that were just this piece away or that piece away, or why Bears fans can't let go of Lovie Smith and are like, oh, they should bring Lovie back as a defensive coordinator and all these things. Like we just can't let go of the great pieces. And I think that's the thing about Caleb Williams. Everybody saw it. Everybody saw the the film and the product he put on display at USC, and then it was like, yeah, but the Bears drafted him. He must not be that good.
Right. And it is unfortunate because like when the Bears are good, football is fun.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And they just haven't been good. And it's to the point where a simple loss like this, right, is something to rock the boat enough. And yes, I listened to hours of ESPN 1000 today.
And them dudes were crazy today.
And they were mad. And I do think it's okay to lay blame at multiple sources
for sure
losses like this.
For sure it is.
And I think that's what really gets the arguments going or the debates going is, well, who's the biggest one at fault? Realistically, it's a total team effort, right?
Right.
I don't put any of that loss on.
There's blame to place on all of them.
Right. Now, yes, there was a defensive flub at the end. So yes, we could chalk that up to a defensive miscue. But there were offensive play calls that weren't great. There was throws by Caleb that weren't great. There were decisions by Caleb that weren't great. There was decisions by Flus that weren't great. Right. My biggest concern with Flus is like what I told Tarbill on Friday, man, is at some point you want these games to mean something.
Right.
And if you're the coach and you have this history of messing up timeouts, messing up the clock, messing up challenges and stuff like that, like eventually when these games are important, that is going to cost you one of these games.
Well, and you eventually lose the benefit of the doubt.
Right. And we watched
and
it
that's
against
where we're
that
at
Texans
with
game.
He's
Right.
lost the benefit of the doubt.
Right. And I think, honestly, I know that there was a play in the game yesterday where I felt he should have challenged the spot of a ball.
The spot, right?
Yes, and he didn't. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering if that was a situation where he was like, well, we could challenge it, but I've done this and got so many wrong. Maybe I just don't do it here, and we hope
at this point, most of the teams, they have somebody that's their job is
right.
to lose, challenge or don't challenge.
Right.
Unfortunately, he's not one of those coaches that's going to make that decision for himself. I don't think. I don't
either. No shot.
I don't personally know him, but I don't get that vibe from him that he's going to make that decision on his own.
I think that this
probably got somebody in his ear that's telling him, "Hey, challenge, don't challenge, challenge,
right.
don't challenge."
Oh, without it, I think it reminds me a lot, and maybe not as chaotic in the locker room, but it reminds me a lot of when Mark Trestman was here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trestman was so focused on the offense,
and it's like that uneasy feeling.
Yeah, and there's questionable things that he does, and he doesn't have like that Mike Tomlin type of demeanor where like, well, I'm holding guys accountable. You don't need to know what I do to hold them accountable, but I'm holding them accountable.
Nor does he say the right things.
Right. He makes it so much more difficult for himself.
Easier for himself.
Yes. And I get it. In the heat of the moment, you're at the podium. These people are firing questions. You might stumble.
But if he would have went up there and said, that play at the goal line, horrible decision. I take full responsibility for that. We shouldn't have done it. Looking back, we probably want to hand it off there. The play we gave up 13 yards, looking back, that's on me. I should have called a different coverage. I should have made it harder for them to take the free yardage.
Right.
In the last play, I should have used the timeout when I saw Tyreek over off to the side. Even if none of those are true. Right. You can say those things and make it easier on yourself.
Right.
But I don't get the vibe from him that he cares. Like he just doesn't understand. One or the other.
I think it's more that. By the history of his press conference, I genuinely think he just doesn't. He's so trying not to blame anybody that he just kind of shoots himself in the foot.
Like to your point, like if he had walked to the podium and says, they say, Coach, what coverage did you have on that play? Why did you guys feel it was okay to give up that kind of room when you knew they couldn't reach the end zone yet? That's an internal thing. We definitely have some things we want to change there. We wish we would have done differently. They'll be done differently next time, but we're going to keep in-house those changes that are going to be made.
Boom, done.
Same thing, Coach. Guys handed off to a backup center at the 1 yard line. Khalil Herbert was supposedly your short yardage back. Then it was Roshan Johnson. Neither of them see the ball. What happened, Coach? Again, we saw some things there that we definitely are going to do different next time. Internal thing, we're not going to go into what changes are going to be made. Done. You've addressed it. You said there was a problem, said it's going to be fixed, and you basically said, I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do.
Right.
But at least we know that there's something there. When you're asked, what coverage were you in when you gave up the 13 yards? And you say, well, that play doesn't matter. No,
that was one of the biggest
Yeah.
gripes I had about listening to him talk today.
And I think I understand what he was trying to say. I think in his mind, he was saying that play doesn't matter. We have to execute on the last play of the game.
Right. But
that's not the way it comes across.
Right. But it's also, it does matter. And I had this debate.
It matters a lot.
Right. I had this debate with the group chat, and they even brought it up on Get Up, where completing a 50-yard pass to the end zone is easier than completing an 80-yard pass to the end zone.
Well, and you heard on the broadcast, I think it was Romo, he said, I wonder if they go to Mariota here because he's got the stronger arm.
Right.
You saw Jake Daniels couldn't reach the end zone from where they were.
Right.
I'm assuming it's because of the rib because he's got a strong arm.
Right.
So he couldn't get it to the end zone there. If you don't give up that 13-yard pass, there's no prayer.
None.
That they're going to throw it to the end zone.
All they end up doing is probably a screen and flipping the ball around, trying to make something happen, get somebody open, and that's how the game ends, most likely.
And like you talk about, well, we don't want to get burnt and give up the touchdown, trying to not give up 13 yards. But nobody's saying you have to send the house.
Right.
Like, drop your safeties back, drop the corners back a little bit, but bring pressure. Like, bring your 4, come after him, make him move, make him throw the ball. Like what you did there, even on the Hail Mary, what you did was you allowed him to wait till everybody got to the end zone.
Right.
Like,
because they rushed 2 people? 3?
3.
One of the guys just got stopped right away,
Correct.
though. I know
it
that.
Was 3. It was 4, and then 1 dropped back as a spy, which I didn't understand.
I didn't either.
Because are you trying to tell me that you think Jaden Daniels is going to run past everybody for the touchdown?
Right.
Because the spy doesn't really matter. He's still got to get to the rest of your defense.
Right. You could have sent him.
Right. So you might as well brought that guy with to try to bring more pressure.
And like, I get it. It's the typical prevent. You send 3, everybody else drops back. I get it. But you're going up against a quarterback who all week has been injured.
Right.
I could talk another hour and a half about this game, and we could find new reasons to
I think the defensive scheme all game left a lot to be desired. Like you
and
said,
I get it. Like you said earlier, they were down 2 of their top defensive players. I understand that. But also, like, I feel like they didn't blitz enough.
That's exactly where I was just going.
Right? Like, that's one thing they've done well this year is blitzing opposing quarterbacks. And I felt like they didn't do it, and it felt like they were playing scared because they thought, well, if we blitz him
taking off and
right. And I understand that too. But know your opponent, man. Like, there's been talks all week about this dude's ribs. After the first 2 drives, he's sitting on the bench getting his ribs taped up with ice on him.
Right.
Like, send the house one time, put this dude on his ass and show him what's up.
Pick a spot where you know that he's going to be in the pocket.
And I'm not saying be dirty with it, No. I'm just saying, like, dude, it's football.
Right.
What do you do in football? You hit the other person.
Well, and you don't have to expose yourself to bring pressure. Like, send a corner blitz, and if he runs up the middle, know that you have one of the best linebacking cores in football.
Right.
And they're all sure tacklers. They're probably going to tackle him.
Right.
Like, those plays, like.
And at this point, and throughout the game, I mean, they were moving the ball well either way.
Right.
You guys were just able to hold them to field goals.
Well, what is the old? You were bending but not breaking.
Right, bending but don't break. So you bend a little bit more.
Right. Yeah.
And like I said, we could talk forever about this game or 3 games ago, and it's just I need to see more in terms of make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Put plays together that make sense. I don't need the Matt Nagy, Santa's little helpers, and all this shit. Like, give the ball to your running back and let him get a yard. And I'll tell you what, if they gave it to Roshan and he didn't get a yard or he fumbled, it would not have been as big of a deal.
Nobody's going to question that.
Right. Because that shit happens.
Mm-hmm.
Give it to an offensive lineman. That's where people are like, why? Why be cute right here? Just get the ball in the end zone.
Well, and like when they got down there, I turned to my wife and I said, if I'm calling these plays, it's 4 runs.
Right.
Like,
but they didn't do that either.
And well, I mean, they ran it, but then they went with Kramer.
Right.
But then when they got down there again, that's when I said, well, I would do the 4 runs here. You can't just run the football and they throw it to DJ Moore. They stop the clock.
That's what I was talking about. That series.
Down, yeah.
Yep.
Like
so then you make them have more time
running the football. And even Tony Romo said, like, you're gonna want to take some time off the clock because you have the control right now.
Right.
You know, so it's
and I would much rather lose the game with the ball in my hand, not being able to get into the end zone on 4 runs, than what happened.
Right? Especially like if you get to 4th down and you want to throw it, fine. It's 4th down. Like at that point, it doesn't matter. Bless you. But it's like,
or even if you don't get it, there's not a lot of time left, and they're on the 1 yard line.
Right.
Like just send the house.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's things like, obviously, you know, it's fun to debate. It's fun to talk about all the different opinions. But when it comes down to it, I think every Bears fan, and I think, you know, obviously, I think Mike would agree too, we just want to see more. We want to feel like when they get there, the spot's not too big.
Right.
We want to feel like when we get to those spots, our coaching staff knows what they're supposed to be doing to lead the team that way.
And I don't feel that confidence.
No, and it doesn't give you that.
And that's why I brought up those numbers. Like,
for sure.
Because I told Tarbill on Friday, I said, I want them to win this game because I know what the narrative is going to be. If they don't, it's going to be, oh, well, it's a team that beats bad teams but can't beat good teams. And that's exactly what the narrative was all day today. You know, so, and football is such a week-to-week game. This could all change next Monday if the Bears go out there and win 38-17.
Right.
You know, then it's nothing.
But no, like if you would have said at the beginning of the season that in week 8 we still wouldn't feel like we have a good offense
or an identity,
everyone would have said no way.
Right.
Like the identity is going to be the passing game. The identity is going to be this high-powered vertical offense that we just haven't seen. And now part of that's Caleb, right? Like Caleb's missed quite a few throws this year.
Yep.
But he's supposed to. Like he's a rookie quarterback. He's supposed to make those mistakes now, not 2 years from now. He's supposed to make them now.
Right.
You know, and the whole debates, like I said, we all know I enjoy a good debate. Sometimes I take different opinions just because it's more fun to debate that than to agree with everybody.
Well, right. It makes the show more interesting.
Correct. But at the end of the day, Eberflus very well may not be the guy. Waldron very well may not be the guy. If that's the case, this organization is not even close to being where they need to be.
Right. Because
now you're talking about a second offense for Caleb in 2 years, a second play caller in 2 years, different look.
A new defense now coming in.
Correct.
Right.
A new defense that maybe.
And like I understood the point of keeping Flus. The defense was playing well. Why rock the boat on both sides if you don't have to? You know? My biggest thing is I'm very worried about that scenario where it doesn't get better.
Right.
Or they have these situations where Flus is making these mental errors and then they have to move. Like, my hope is that they go and win the rest of the games this year and nothing bad happens. And it's utopia. They only lose 3 games all season. But that's not realistic. I don't. And
get your hand
you have to have a situation where and I told you guys at the beginning of the season, I thought this year was going to come out and you were going to find out more about the coach than you were about the quarterback.
Right.
And I think that as the season progresses, that's going to be the case. We kind of know what Caleb can be. We've watched it, the glimpses, you know, and
it's funny because to me, I think the Matt Eberflus conversation is a lot like the Justin Fields conversation.
Right.
As weird as that sounds to say.
Well, no, one thing that I will say about Flus that is a little annoying is remember when he was like, we want a quarterback that can win the game in the fourth quarter.
Mhm.
Okay, when he was talking about Justin. But like that also pertains to you, my guy.
Absolutely,
Like
it does.
you have to hold
Absolutely.
yourself to that same accountability.
For sure.
If you're not putting your team in the best position or you're making mistakes,
Or
in
I was gonna
crunch
say,
time,
or you're holding the team back
right,
from those.
that's just as bad as a quarterback that
If
can't
not
get it done.
worse.
Right. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
cut it. I'm gonna cut it so that we can go on and enjoy our night and
Yeah.
not. I feel good. I feel like it was a good stress relief. We want to thank Mike for jumping on. Dude's always
Hell
been
yeah.
so good with
Always
us.
so good when he comes on.
And go ahead and follow us, Facebook, Undefeated Sports Network. You can find me on X and Facebook also. Come talk shit to me. Friday we had some Packer fan that wanted to jaw with me in Tarbill, and it was fun. And I'm always up for every time I meet a Packer fan, I tell them I do this, and they're like, "Oh, why?" I was like, "Well, why don't you check it out and feel free to talk shit to me?"
Right.
Like, cool, talk shit. I don't care. But thank you guys for tuning in. It was a lot of fun. I'm not sure if I'll be on Friday. We'll see. We'll play it by ear. Maybe I'll cool down, have a little bit better take, and then kind of set the table for this week's coming game. But yeah, thanks for you guys for tuning in, Turtle. It was great talking with you.
Yes,
and,
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll catch you guys sometime this week.